Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I am Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors with endless stories to support independent booksellers, authors, and librarians, and of course, readers like you. On this week's show, Kristy and I are thrilled to welcome bestselling author Emily Giffin to discuss her new novel, The Summer Pact. The book was just released on July 9th, and we are thrilled to talk to Emily about it.
So excited. I loved this book. Okay.
I know.
But first, we have just a quick reminder to check out all the fun things going on in our Friends and Fiction community at friendsandfiction.com.
There, you will find our show schedule, details on upcoming in-person events, and links to our bookshop.org page, to the Friends and Fiction official book club page with Brenda and Lisa, to our merch store, our book subscription box, and our weekly email newsletter sign-up. In other words, if you want to know anything about Friends and Fiction and what we have to offer, which is a ton, be sure to check out friendsandfiction.com.
Speaking of that subscription box, there are just a couple left over at Oxford Exchange. So if you want one of those, you'll get hand-signed first editions of Mary Kay, Summers at the Saint, My A Happier Life, some cool exclusive Friends and Fiction swag for just $60, which is the steal. And you can add on the new paperback editions of Patti's The Secret Book of Flora Lee and Kristin's The Paris Daughter, and those will come signed as well. So it makes a great gift for a friend who loves to read, or yourself, which is who I would like to get one for.
I still haven't seen my little swag bag, by the way, Kristy. So.
Well, I haven't seen them either. They went straight to Oxford Exchange.
God, they're so cool.
Isn't that crazy?
All right.
I got the sample, so I've seen the bag. Like I approved the bag, but it didn't have like our stuff.
All the stuff on it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, speaking of great releases that we're excited about, we are really thrilled to welcome our friend Emily Giffin. So I know you know who she is because you are all fans, but she is the best-selling author of 12 novels, including All We Ever Wanted, The Lies That Bind, and Meant to Be.
Emily, a Chicago native, graduated summa cum laude from Wake Forest University near me and the University of Virginia School of Law. After law school, she moved to Manhattan and practiced litigation at a large firm for several years while she paid back her school loans and dreamed of becoming a writer.
And I love hearing this with such a successful and beautiful writer. But despite the rejection of her first manuscript, Emily persisted, retiring from the legal profession and moving to London, which I dream of doing about once a week, to pursue her dreams full time. It was there that she began writing Something Borrowed, a story of a young woman who, upon turning 30, finally learned to take a risk and follow her heart.
1 year later, Emily's own gamble paid off as she completed her manuscript, landed an agent, and signed a 2-book deal on both sides of the Atlantic. The following summer, Something Borrowed was a sensation, and it is said that Emily vowed never to practice law again.
Oh, God. Emily has been dubbed a modern-day Jane Austen by Vanity Fair and dependably down-to-earth storyteller by the New York Times. Her books have been translated into 31 languages, with over 12 million copies sold worldwide. In addition, 5 of her novels have been optioned for the big screen and are in various stages of development. The first, Something Borrowed, hit theaters in May 2011. I was there for the Atlanta premiere of it with my daughter Megan. So, yes, we were there together and got to see the Atlanta premiere. And you had to wear pink or white. I remember it. I'll never forget it. And it hit theaters in 2011, starring Kate Hudson, Jennifer Goodwin, and John Krasinski.
I've watched that movie like 100 times.
I know
love
the
it.
little dance. We should do it.
So good. Emily now resides in Atlanta. Her new novel, The Summer Pact, was just published on July 9th.
Sean, can you bring Emily on to join us?
Hey guys.
Hi, my friend.
Hey, Patti and Kristy.
We are so happy you're here.
Always.
Well, welcome back to the Friends in Fiction show. You are a fan favorite.
Congratulations, Kristy, for the success of your novel.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for all of your help. That amazing, gorgeous cover blurb. And
It was such an honor. I don't know about y'all. When your blurb is on the cover of a book you loved, it's like it's amazing. It's like you feel like it's partly your book that came out.
well, I'm glad that you feel that way because I think that's true. It makes people buy the book.
Well, I just think it was fabulous. So thank you. And you know how much I love your writing, Patti.
Oh, yeah, the three of us. I mean, I just feel like we could all just read each other's books and then be happy.
That'd be great.
So,
That's my new job.
Yeah, that's our new job. So we're really excited to dig in and talk about the Summer Pact. So let's go for it. So 4 freshmen arrive at college from completely different worlds when tragedy strikes.
Right.
In the wake of this tragedy, they make a pact or a vow that will cause them to reunite a decade later and go on a life-changing adventure together. So, Emily, if this is what the novel is about, what would you add and what would you say it is really about?
Oh, Patti. Well, I mean, you nailed it. You really nailed it. But I think the book is about, I think it's about found family, our friendship being, friendship is so important, and it's our found family. And some of us are very lucky to have family that we're so close to, and those are the people that we lean on the most. And others really look to their friends. And in this book, it's very much about friendship saving us and getting through something to get with the help of friends at our side. And I'd say that's kind of what it's about. But it's also, you in the case of your novels, your book is always about many different things. And another theme I think that's so important in this one is it's never too late. I mean, these kids, they feel like kids to me. They're 32. But I remember when I was 30, I didn't feel this way when I was leaving the law and going to write full time. So, I mean, it's all relative, but it's never too late to redefine who you are and to sort of really discover something new about yourself and to go for it and to change things up. And I think often that it really helps to do that when we change our setting. And for these characters in this book, it was a trip to Capri, to beautiful Capri, which I had to take as well, to do the book.
Poor you.
I know. It was really hard, but it really kind of can sometimes jog you, like jostle you, and sort of change you get away from your patterns, your daily patterns. You get away from, in some cases, certainly with Hannah in this book, your toxic relationships. She had a narcissistic mother, which I'm lucky not to have. I'm in my mother's house right now.
Hi, Mom.
She's sitting here like a live audience, like listening.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, even though she knows all of this by now, but so yeah, I am fortunate enough to have such a close relationship with my mother, who's a retired librarian, and her collection of books behind me, and we have so much in common. But certainly, I don't think any of us. We all know someone who has that sort of toxic cycle, whether it's a narcissist or something that resembles that. And for Hannah, leaving Atlanta, where she was like rooted, and she grew up there, and her parents were there, and leaving sort of with her best friends and going to travel. I mean, we should all be so lucky to be able to go jet off to Capri when we hit rock bottom, but it's really what she needed. And the other characters discover along the way that, wow, we really needed this too. And I think sometimes you don't even realize, you're so entrenched in your life that sometimes you don't even realize that you're in, unhealthy patterns, or you're not happy. You think you're happy. Kristy, you write so beautifully about this, but you think you're happy, but are you really happy? Sometimes it takes friends to jolt us out of that. And so, yeah, that's my long-winded. I think your synopsis was much crisper and cleaner and to the point. But
no, but what it's really about is so different than what the plot is. And what it's really about is that being jolted out of your life to redefine yourself, to what friendships are to each other. And
right.
beautifully said.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I thought something else that it was about. Let me tell you what your book's about, Emily. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. No, but one of the things that I think like really spoke to me about this book that I really loved was that I think what you did really well was you showed these characters who had evolved past who they were when they were friends in college, but then also in coming back together, they kind of reclaimed the pieces of themselves that had like gone missing in that evolution, which I think is really neat and something that I don't know, that really resonated with me because I think we become, Patti and I've actually talked about this just in real life. You become a different person when you're with different groups of people. And sometimes it's for good and sometimes it's not. But I think for these characters, being able to come back to those pieces that they had lost was very transformative.
Your truest self, like the people that you can be just yourself with, I think is so important. And the book is also, the first line of the book is like, what is it about our coming of age friendships? Like, what is it about those friendships? And why are there so many books and movies about that? My all-time favorite movie, which I think has as much to do with Stephen King being a wonderful storyteller, but it was the novella, The Body, that was turned into the movie Stand By Me. But it's my favorite. And I mention it in this book, but looking back, it's because I saw it when I was 14 years old and had just moved to a new town and was having to meet new friends. And so it just really resonated with me. But the book is about coming of age friendships. I think Richard Dreyfuss writes at the end, which is, of course, Stephen King's words. But do you ever have friends like the ones, I never had friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. And then he writes, Jesus, does anyone? And so for those characters in Stand By Me, it was age 12 when this thing happened where they lost their innocence. For the characters in my book, they kind of lost their innocence a bit later as they were finishing up college based on what happened. But whoever those people were that were by your side in those moments when things shifted and you had to like face the reality of like this is real life. You're no longer protected. You're an adult. You feel like you're an adult. We're lucky if it happens as late as it did for these characters, but for some of us, it's, like 10, but I think it's very much about the power of that. And it's not so much that the people that you're with then you have the most in common with for your life, but you're bound together with them. Even when you lose touch along the way, they're very much a part of your formative foundational history of how you see yourself and who you are as a person. And I think the book is also, it's also about that.
And when you see each other, no matter how much time has passed, it's as if no time.
Yeah, I've seen that, Patti, with your friends at your signings, your bestie from college, and it's almost like when you're together. Because I met you 20 years ago when our first books were both coming out. I think I met you at the Margaret Mitchell house, right?
Yeah.
When your first book came out, you were wearing a white suit.
I can't believe you remember this.
The music went off at one point, like the sound speaker, but you just kind of you're dancing up there. And I was like, she's amazing. She is so confident. I think it was maybe your second book. But
because our first books came out at the same time.
The year before. But you were better at it quicker. It took me longer to get sort of comfortable in front of an audience. But anyway, so we were really young then too, because that would have put us in our 30s.
Yeah.
But when you're with that friend and I see her come to your signings, it's almost like a little window into Auburn, War Eagle Patti.
Yes.
It's a little bit of you shifts back into that girl.
And it takes 10 seconds or less.
Yeah.
And you can see in your characters the minute they reunite. They want to be their cool self now, but boom.
And you change and you redefine yourselves and you go through so many iterations of who you are and you can drift apart because of that. But those people who were there when the shit hit the fan, for whatever that looks like, and it was incredibly tragic in this book, but for some of us, it's more, it's not quite that rocking to the core and tragic, but yeah, I think
Still coming of age friendship.
I love writing. I love writing about those formative friendships and what we do with them. So,
I do
yeah.
too. Yeah. Okay. So in your last novel, Meant to Be, you reimagined the Kennedy legacy and tragedy, which was also so fantastic. And now you've imagined a group of friends in college, which are very different ideas, obviously. And so it's pretty clear that your curiosity takes you a lot of different places. So can you remember, can you think back to that moment when you were like, I'm going to write a story about 4 best friends and a pact? And do you remember that moment, or was it how did it come to be?
Actually, and this is something that I haven't answered along the way because it's such a good question and no one else has asked it. But one of my best friends, and I have never been a friend group girl, even in the years when everyone was sort of in friend groups. I've always had sometimes your friends, your fellow mothers of the 5th grade girls or whatever. So I have that, but my really close friends are typically one-on-one. And so that's the case with kind of my very closest friends. They're not friends with one another. They know one another. They see one another over the years at my thing that varies, but they're one-on-one friendships. But one of my closest, dearest friends, she's my daughter's godmother. I think Patty's probably met her because, along the way, but her name is Jennifer. She lives in New York. Her daughter is my goddaughter and my daughter is hers. But she and I were, I think it was after Kate Spade took her life and died by suicide. And we just had suicide has touched all of us in some way or another. I think you can't go through your life and escape the ramifications of that, whether it's someone really close to you or someone really close to you loses someone. But it was right after that. And we just got into this really deep conversation about suicide. Have you ever had suicidal thoughts? Have you ever been that low? And, she said something like, no matter how, bad it gets, even if you ultimately wanted to do this, or even if I ultimately wanted to do this, I want us to make a promise that we will, that we'll sit in each other's closets. Now, my closet wasn't something you would want to sit in. Hers was Park Avenue, beautiful closet that actually I helped decorate with all the little knickknacks and stuff. But she's just sit in the closet and just tell each other everything. And I thought, I'm yeah, that's, you got a deal. You got a deal. And she was going through something at the time, but I remember thinking it could be me next. Right. And that's unrealistic in a lot of ways. And it sort of trivializes the deep rooted depression that some people go through and their absolutely inability to communicate. And the last thing I would want to do is suggest that it could be fixed with the deep talk in the closet. But it was this thought of, what if there was a way you could talk to someone, even if you were still going to do that, even if you had to do that, and how could it be in some cases ameliorated? Could you fight on for the next day?
If you made a vow
like that. And so that was it was a real life sort of inspiration for what if I wrote a story about someone, what if Jennifer or I ever had to make good on that promise and we ended up in her beautiful Park Avenue closet, and what would that conversation look like? And so that I think was kind of the early inspiration. And then combined with that, I wanted to root the story in a coming of age friendship, which has always been such a fascinating, poignant concept to me. And I think a lot of us, and and combined with that, I would say this sense of redefining who you are. And I did have a difficult year. I went through some things, and at some point it was life imitating art, in that I was leaning on my friendships. And so it was a constant reminder of what that looks like to characters in your book, because as you write fiction and beautiful fiction, the closer you can get to those emotions, the more you feel, connected to your characters, and the more powerful I think your story becomes. Even if it's not something exactly that you've experienced, you can sort of draw on those those core emotions of loss or of wanting to change. You know, for me, like leaving the law and starting to pursue my love of writing is like very much like Tyson's story in the book. And even though on paper I have I do have the least in common with him. He's a Black male. I'm a white female. But I felt like I was able to write about him with the help of some friends and some, authenticity readers and whatever else to make sure I did him justice. But we had this major thing in common of not liking, wanting to leave this profession of being a lawyer or not being entirely fulfilled with it. And so I think as long as you can sort of tap into the emotion of one of your characters, your life doesn't have to resemble them in even big obvious ways like gender or race. So
the closer you cut to the bone, the better,
right.
which is the hardest thing to do.
And I've always wondered, like I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I have a very high EQ, and I know you do too, both of you. But do you think that you can write effective, like really great fiction without a high EQ? I mean, maybe like thriller, maybe it's like entirely plot driven, but do you think people who sort of don't have the ability to connect with others and their emotions can effectively, do you think you could?
So I always say that I think we're pretend psychoanalysts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you have to, for me, you have to care. I had a friend recently say to me, what's fascinating to me about you is that you always are wondering what other people think and feel. And I am. Yeah. I'm always wondering what other people think and feel. And she said, I don't think I can be a writer, because she was a poet and she was thinking about writing a novel. And she said, I don't think I can do it because I don't really think that way. I don't wonder about other people's feelings and thoughts. And I'm like, I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, because I do know that that's where my stories come from.
Yeah.
I do have to mention that Patti and I are both March 20th.
Yeah.
So we're like little soul sister Pisces signs. Did you buy into the whole thing that I think Glennon Doyle was talking about, or she touched on it? I think everyone knew about it. We're really Aries. March 20th is really an Aries. Did you read that?
I didn't even read that. Okay. I don't know. I think we're half and half. I think
but something changed. Like basically, I don't know. Something happened and everything was redefined. And like, no, we're actually not Pisces. We are the first day of the year.
I'm not a Cancer anymore. I'm the new one.
Yeah. Okay. So you're cusp. You were cusp.
Yeah, like that didn't really ever like take off, I feel like, because I felt like my heart.
Why it didn't take off? Because all of us were like, hell no, I'm a Pisces.
Yeah.
Like,
like, shut up. Like, even if you're not super into it, like, I'm not letting go of my little fish and
I'm not letting go of my fish and my water. Years of creativity.
And years of reading, like, even when you read it, it's sort of like you can make any of them work. But we read that one, and damn it, we're Pisces. But
and I'm a Cancer.
A lot alike, Patti.
Yes,
I'm a Cancer.
And we care about the same thing. So to answer your question, I think that the curiosity of other people's feelings and the empathy for other people
drives
a lot of incredibly important part of characterization.
And do you feel that way too, Kristy?
Yeah, well, and I was going to say I'm a Cancer, and we tend to be highly nostalgic and emotional. Like we are, and I don't think that I am really like externally super emotional, but like inside I very much am. But I think even to be the kind of people who are thinking about things like, why is it that our childhood friendships are different? Like, I think if you are not an emotional person, that hasn't even really occurred to you.
You're not even curious about that.
You're not even wondering about that.
Very true. Very true. But
I think it could be really hard. Yeah.
And then when you start getting into the heads of your characters, it's like, whoa, like you're just, then you're done. Then you're done. And then you also know that you have a book, right? When you really care about these people. Yeah. So that's kind of hard for me when I start writing a book. I have all these ideas of who they are, but it's like meeting a new friend.
Yes.
It's like no matter how well that first meeting goes or the first lunch or the initial days of your friendship, you're not going to really dive into anything terribly interesting. I mean, sometimes there's like immediate chemistry and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you forever. But for the most part, it takes a while. And that's how I feel when I'm writing a book. It just takes a while before you you're really invested in the story they're telling you, even though you're telling it.
Because you have to know their past. You have to know their wounds. You have to know why they feel the way. Okay. So you
that is exactly what, wait, I have to just say this because that's exactly what I always say. And when people say like, do you know what's going to happen in your books? And I'm like, no, because it's like, if you meet a new friend and then you've known them for a year, you don't know how they're going to act by the time, like the day you meet them, you've met a very different person than once you've known them for a year. You can predict their actions or they can evolve to a point that you never could have imagined.
Yeah. Yeah. And the barriers are down too, right? Like they're willing to tell you your, deepest, darkest secrets and feelings. And Patti and I just were on the phone right before the podcast talking.
And guess what? What is a friendship worth if you can't?
What is it? I mean, well, I would say, and I know you don't mean that quite literally, because you have friends that are different tiers and they do
absolutely
for you and everything. Yep. But what is a true friend? A true friend is the one that you, there's no, you're not posturing. You're not hiding. You're just sort of like, this is the way it is. And
putting it on the table. And I think our characters take a while to get there.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating, Emily, is that you've always written about complex family and love relationships. Always. Right. I mean, all of your books, there's about grief and love and ultimately hope in all of your novels. So we're going to meet some of your characters now. We're going to pretend we're at a dinner party, right?
Okay.
And they're about to walk through the door. So let's start with Summer, the perfectionist from the Midwest who has an athletic scholarship. Yes. Introduce her to you.
Yes. Well, I mean, she's I will say, the connection that I have to each character, there's like something that I have to really feel like I have in common with them.
Yep.
To write about them in the first person. You can have ancillary characters that are, but like to write in from their point of view. And she's a college runner at University of Virginia. My boys are both college runners. They're at Columbia, but they actually had verbally committed to UVA. They almost ran at Virginia before they changed and went to New York. But they, I have lived like they're obsessed. I mean, that's their passion. It's like their full-time job. It's like, at Columbia and they're, it's their whole world. And my daughter is 17. She's a rising junior. And she just,
my God, how is Harriet a rising junior?
It's crazy. But she's now able to, like the summer between your sophomore and junior years, you're able to write college coaches. So she's had her list and she's writing the college coaches. So she's now in it. It's going to be another wave of it. And so I could very much relate to the mentality of a college runner and the enormous pressure with so many kids put on themselves, especially like, it's like the higher achieving you are, it's almost like this cycle of the more pressure you put on yourself, which is like why it's like, you think to yourself, Anthony Bourdain had it all, or Kate Spade had it all, or like these college athletes that you've seen that, the goalkeeper Katie from Stanford have it all. Like, how is this deep rooted, sense of despair rooted in such amazingly successful people? But it doesn't work that way at all. And I did want to explore this concept of like college athletes and the pressure that they're under and the mental health aspects of that. So that was something else that I just wanted to weave into the story because I've just, I've done a lot of thinking about it. And my boys have been fortunate enough not to really confront the dark side of this, but they've had, they had stress fractures in their hip. They had to, sit out one season. One was in the left hip, the other was the right hip, which is weird because they're identical twins. But I've got the ups and downs of that. Even though they're at this like peak level, they're doing what so few kids are able to do to participate in a Division I sport, and yet it's like this pressure. So Summer very much was like that. And she was one of those, so impressive to her friends and her family and amazing student and, straight A's and wanted to get into Harvard Medical School. And you set these records at UVA, she was an All-American. She had multiple records that she was holding. And yet she was very fragile. And that juxtaposition and the fragility that comes with people who are at the top of their game, I think is so fascinating and so frightening. So that would be Summer, and adored. She's adored by her friends, and people saw her as infallible and amazing. And yet she was just, you know, in the book became very, very, tragically wounded. So that's summer, and it's set in the summer, but it's really the summer pact really refers to her. So yeah. So that's summer. And then did you want me to do the other ones? You want Hannah? You want a quick?
Well, yes. So I was going to say, let's meet Hannah. So this is not really a spoiler because her quandary opens the book, but Hannah discovers that her life is not what she imagined or planned. And she's really the one that invokes the pact. So
she does.
Tell us about.
So I would say Hannah, it's interesting. Her life isn't what she envisioned or planned, but what she kind of discovers along the way, it's like her life wasn't what her mother envisioned and planned.
Yes.
And so there was like, she's the one with the narcissistic mother, and she's grown up in a very traditional household in Buckhead. If you're not familiar with Atlanta, but it's sort of the part of Atlanta where there's a lot of wealth and these beautiful homes, and she was just raised by parents who were like, put your always have a smile on your face and a bow in your hair, and you sort of your goal is, it's great that you're going to UVA and we know you're smart, honey, but your goal is to marry well and have beautiful children who you also raise to say yes, ma'am, and no, sir. And you put bows in their hair, and their shoes are always spruced up and shine for church on Sunday. So this is like the weight of her story, and she doesn't really recognize that it's a weight until something goes tragically wrong in her relationship. And when that happens, it forces her to think about like what everything kind of collapses around her, because everything's been built on this. In some ways, she's not unlike Summer, although Summer's was more like achievement oriented. Hers was more about appearances and more about, having this really good looking, wealthy fiance. And so she, and I think she also, of the four friends, she was the one that like questioned her worth the most. Like she was the one who, didn't, why are they friends with me? And I don't know if you've had close friends like that, like that are just their self-esteem. They really don't know who they are. Yeah. But typically they're the ones you want to be like, are you kidding? Like you're amazing. Like what is wrong with you? Like people who call themselves boring. It's always like, you're not. I had an Uber driver recently who was, I said, it was a long ride. We were in traffic and I said, tell me something interesting. He's like, oh, I'm boring. And I'm like, never say that about yourself. Never say that about yourself. And would you believe I ended up seeing him again? And
no way.
Yes, crazy. And he said to me, I told my brother, he's Venezuelan. He's really cute. His cute little accent. He's like, I told my brother that you said never call myself boring. And I'm like, yes, Emilio, we're making progress. But that's Hannah. She's like, oh, I'm boring compared to these. My friends are, one of them's so funny, and she's got so much charisma, and the other one's like brilliant, and the other one's like star runner, and I'm just like who I am. Which I think a lot of that comes from the way she was raised, which is really, really sad when a parent does that to a child. Thank you, Mom, for not doing that to me.
Yeah.
That
mother was so well drawn. I mean, I hate to say she was she wasn't one of my favorite characters. I don't mean it like that, but she was a real standout character because her. I mean,
I was going to say, we all know her.
We all know her.
Yeah. And when you have a close friend with a mother like that, you're just heart breaks for them, because they're questioning you can see where their insecurities come from, like where you're questioning what they're wearing and their weight and their all this, who they're with.
What is their worth with all their friends around them, and what did they have to offer? Which brings us to Lanie, a California girl. So tell us about her.
She's again, they're all wounded, but she's had.
We all are.
She had like a family secret that she's been hiding, and it's been done to her, and hers is coming to terms with that, and then tackling. I've never written about substance abuse in any way before in any of my books, which is kind of a remarkable thing given 12 books and relationship driven. But this is the first time that a protagonist or any main character has like dealt with like a drinking issue, and that was. That was interesting. That was, a challenge in some ways, although kind of during that COVID era, I started to think like, do I maybe have a problem? I mean, so it wasn't that far a field for me. I could get into her head of those like toxic behaviors. Like I was drinking like multiple bourbons at night, but she's more of like, big personality and self-destructive behavior, classically self-destructive behavior. Because let's be honest, we're usually like most of us are our own worst enemy. Some in more subtle ways, not so much about like a glass of bourbon, but we're often, we're all kind of self-destructive at core. And when we can shed that as much as we can, I think we're in a much better, healthier place. But that's what we need our friends for.
That's
right.
right.
Our sides and help us navigate and tell us that we kick ass and we're amazing and we can do it.
But also to have them say, this might be a problem.
Yeah.
Like this might be a problem.
Yeah. Most loving way. Like
you're
not being your best version of yourself, and like we can help you get there. And then Tyson I already touched on, but he's the lawyer. He's his parents are the very successful judges in DC, and he kind of comes from this DC elite background, and he feels a lot of pressure to live up to that sort of the way he's been raised, so he kind of finds himself in his own way. But I really like Tyson. I really became like, I felt very connected to Tyson by the end of the book. Really all of them, but I feel like Tyson is like the one I came away from like, I want to be really close friends with him. Like he would be a good
He's
friend.
like the glue.
Yeah, he's a good man.
Stable one.
Yes, for sure. But he had some growth to do too. And
he definitely did. But he was very light.
He was solid. And I love the dynamic of male-female friendships, which I've done since Something Borrowed. That was the one thing about the movie with Something Borrowed. The only thing that I ever like pushed back on, and they were right. They know what they're doing with movies, but I was like, I don't want Rachel to like Ethan. I want them to be, or Ethan to like Rachel. I want them to just be friends. Like I love like pure male-female friendships with no, shenanigans going on, but or undercurrent, or like I'm the Sarah when Harry met Sally, who believes when Sally met Harry.
Harry met Sally.
Yeah. Like Sally met Harry. Well, they both met each other. But I'm the one who says, like, yeah, you could have friends can be friends. If men and women can't be friends without that undercurrent. But that's the gist. So there
now
you
we met them all, and they all collide.
I hope your wonderful viewers and listeners and fans out there get to know these people, because I want to share them so much.
They all have their own wounds, and they're all fascinating, and they all collide in Italy, and it is amazing. But I want to talk about, it has been 20 years since Something Borrowed, Emily.
Yeah.
I remember when that book came out. It was at the same time mine was coming out, and I was so jealous of it, and it had that gorgeous cover, and it was a huge success by every standard, including a movie with Kate Hudson.
Yeah, that was later, but yes, it wasn't it surreal when those first books came out?
So surreal, and seeing it on a bookshelf.
Yeah, it's crazy.
As you look back, do you feel like you're returning to some of the same themes?
I feel like, this one feels a bit more like Something Borrowed and Something Blue than other ones, because it's like a group of friends, and they're younger. I've kind of, my characters have grown up with me. I'm now 52. When I started writing, I was 30, started writing sort of, my first published book came out when I was 32. So 20 years ago. But yeah, I think the relationship, there's only so many, combinations of, it's like romantic love, friendship, it's like, in a way, I write about the same things. Again, I mean, I'm not super like high plot concept. And there's nothing thrillery about these. There's an occasional twist here and there, but it's just about people getting through life and doing the best they can, and how we screw up and we hurt each other, and then we have to forgive or move on, or all the variations of that. But they're definitely. It's definitely, life's not easy, is it, girls?
No. And I think we do return again and again to the things we care about the most, to the things that we talked about it earlier about cutting close to the bone. Like, we return to those because we want to write about them, because we want to figure out how to live better and what it means for us and what it means for them. And so I think each of us return to our own themes over and over in different stories and in different ways.
Yeah. It's like always something we're working out. Or I can look at these. I've been doing this recently. Like, I've realized there'll be some little tiny thing in like this book, and it leads me to this whole next book. Like, it's very odd. And I didn't know it consciously until I started, and I was like, wow, that's happened like 3 or 4 books in a row. That's really odd. But yeah, our subconscious is a weird place, I think.
Yeah. It's murky back there.
Yeah. Well, Emily, we cannot leave without talking about the royal family, because, for anyone who doesn't follow you on Instagram, they must, because you are my official royal family expert. And I know a lot of other people's too. And you traveled to London for the Queen's funeral. Yeah. Recently, you met Camilla, and we need to hear everything.
Queen Camilla. Well, as I mentioned, my power's out. So I'm at my mom. So this is a good, I could give you a little insight into how people are always like, why do you love the royal family? And I'm like, no one asks that about the little boy who grew up in Tulsa, but he's a Yankees fan. Because his father or his grandfather, or, I shouldn't stereotype, could be his mother, told him to love the Yankees. Like, that's what my mom did. She's right over there. She's obsessed. And so I became obsessed. But here is her. I don't know if there's a glare here, but this letter, I'm going to read it to you. It says,
my gosh.
July 22nd, 1953. And it says, Dear Marianne, I'll try to hold it up. I write at the Queen's command to thank you for your letter. Her Majesty deeply appreciates your message of goodwill and affection at this time of her coronation, and desires me to send you the Queen's sincere thanks.
Oh my God.
Sincerely, her lady in waiting. And so my mom said, she was 8 at the time, she pictured this lady going, I command you to write to write Marianne Elgin. And of course, that's how I pictured it too. And then we have all of her royal books here. We have this little gem of the royal family.
Aww.
She's obsessed. So she taught me to be obsessed. And it's, as she always said, they're not celebrities, they're history. No matter how big of a celebrity like Brad Pitt is, no one's going to read about him in history books 200 years from now. Camilla will be read about. She'll be the House of Windsor, just like we learned the House of Tudor. She will be learned about. So when I met her, that sense of everything that I grew up loving, and just the sense of history. And of course, I was in Hampton Court Palace, so it's like Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn.
Envious. I poured over those pictures.
It was a dream come true. I'm not going to I can't lie here, but I went into the corner right after I met her, and I was just sort of hyperventilating, and I started to cry. And then one of the, and it's like, someone said, do you love Camilla? And I'm like, well, first of all, I really respect her. I really respect the Queen's reading room, which Kristy, I know you respect the Queen's reading room. But it's
well, that's why I had to get up, because I was like, this is my claim to fame, right?
Yes, that's why I'm saying, that was more amazing than meeting her.
I don't think that was more amazing than meeting her, but it was bizarre.
It's amazing, but she's done great things. But aside from that, she is, married to the monarch. She's the Queen of England. She was coronated. It's history. Yeah. And so I went in the corner and cried. And this cute caterer said to me, your makeup looks, I'm sure my British accent, because I'm flustered here, but she was like, your makeup looks so beautiful. Don't cry, love. She's like, don't mess up your makeup. And I was like, you're right. I look good. So it was really special. But I was like a 10-year-old. I was 8-year-old who received that letter that's up on the wall. And by the way, my mom knows, I'm going on record, I have one sister, she's an older sister. We don't fight over my mom's jewelry or furniture and everything else, but that's mine when you die.
Oh, that's so funny. So what did you say to Camilla when you met her? I want to know what you said to her.
I said to her, it's an honor of a lifetime.
Oh.
And I said, and I came over for your coronation, and I should have said I camped out on the streets because there wasn't a lot of sleeping, but I said I slept on the streets. And she said, you didn't. And I said, well, of course I did. And I was just, I mean, it was sort of autopilot. I didn't remember really what I said, but then there was a recording of it. So then I got to replay it and send it to my mom and like, oh my gosh. But, I just told her how much I respect her and what she's doing and how much I appreciate what she's doing for books and reading. So you all are not unlike the Queen of England because you're doing the same thing that Camilla's doing.
We feel that way.
And one of the things I heard,
which the crown, Kristy.
You're going to have to throw this into the mix with your podcast. But that one of the people that works for the Queen's Reading Room was giving a speech and said that 5 minutes a day of reading is the same. It does the same health benefits as 10,000 steps a day.
What?
5 minutes. And like this
we all get way more than that.
Well, I know we do. So we should not get Alzheimer's. So at the rate we're going, but that's what it said. It staves off dementia and Alzheimer's and everything else 5 minutes a day. And I'm thinking 5 minutes, but think about the number of people that don't read 5 minutes
or anything at all.
Or anything at all. They're just busy looking at their screens.
She really wants to encourage just like reading and when you think of it in terms of health, it's amazing that we can do what we're doing and make people healthier, right?
That's awesome.
So cool.
Not just happier, but healthier.
That is just the best story. Like, I just love that you got to go do that. And wow, I can't imagine. I feel like that's like a really life-changing moment.
I would have spent a year just figuring out what to wear.
Oh, same. I mean, but once I made the decision to go, because there was some conflicts going on. I mean, I knew I was going, but kind of once it was hammered down and I knew I had the invite, I didn't have that much time, but I knew I wore Victoria Beckham. I had to do a British designer. Yes. So that was a given, girls. And the dress was too big because I didn't have time to alter it. But but the good thing is it made me stand up really straight because otherwise, like the sweater's probably too big too. But so I was like, I had perfect posture and I nailed my curtsy. I really nailed the curtsy. I have to brag on that. So
did you practice the curtsy? Like, I would have been very nervous about that.
Of course I practiced the curtsy. Yes, of course. And I had to give Harlan Coben shit because he was there. I had to give him, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to swear on him, but I had to give him a hard time because he didn't bow.
Why?
When he met her. Well, he had met her at Clarence's house like before, and he didn't bow. And I said, and Harlan apologizes for not bowing. And I said, I was horrified. And she said, this is like a little moment of banter. And she looked at him and then me, and she said, I would have been horrified too. Oh. Like, she's cute.
She's fun.
And one other thing about her, like, she has her hair is beautiful. It's like beautiful and like thick and shiny and like this perfect cut. And her skin's really pretty. She's prettier in person than you imagine her to be in pictures. And I just want to say one more thing. Yes, I love Diana, but their love story is legit. It goes back. He's loved one person his whole life. One person, and he's been consistent. He loved her before Diana, during Diana, after Diana, and there's something beautiful about that. Even though it's terrible what happened to Diana, and she was definitely a victim in all this. But we would be lucky to have written the story of Charles and Camilla, which maybe one of us should write. Kristy, it should be you. My mom's now clapping over there. She loves Camilla.
It should be me. I'm sorry. I think it should probably be you.
On the screen, it should be together,
you. But you do have a letter from her, and I don't have that. So between us, we can like,
you met her in real life,
and then also that Patti loves London. So maybe with the three of us,
we'll just write like a collab.
But I love talking to you girls. I know I overstayed my welcome here. I'm like,
no, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Okay, wait,
yes, you can't get out of your living room. You're like,
don't leave us yet, because we have one more thing to say. we have a reminder, and then we have one more question for you. Okay. So
go for it.
For everyone watching and listening, we encourage you to rush out and buy your copies of the Summer Pact, which clearly Patti and I both absolutely loved and devoured. I read it. I shouldn't say that because like you worked on it for a really long time, and then I'm like, I read it. But it's a compliment because if you're like putting aside everything else to read it. So anyway, I devoured this book, absolutely loved it. But the perfect
we
place.
were texting each other, both of us, because we knew we were interviewing you, and we really. And I texted you, Emily, the minute it was done.
Yeah, you did.
You loved it.
I loved your text. I still have it. I saved my favorite text.
That's awesome.
Thank you. But,
well, the perfect place to pick up the Summer Pact is on the Friends and Fiction shop on bookshop.org. You'll be getting it at a discount and helping to fund our show, all while supporting our guests and our beloved independent booksellers nationwide.
And we also want to remind you to follow us and Emily on Instagram. There you'll see pictures of the Queen and all the news, and join our Facebook group, which is nearly 250,000 members strong now. Can't believe it. When you visit Friends and who knew? When you visit friendsandfiction.com, you can stay up to date about everything we have going on. You can see all of our big events coming up, and you get our weekly email newsletter, which is chock full of bonus content, including Emily's Q&A about loads of things we didn't even talk about this evening.
Yeah. Well, Emily, we hope everyone out there is following you because we know they're all big fans. But just in case, can you tell everyone how to connect with you? And I know that Patti gets to join you at the Atlanta event at the History Center. I'm so jealous. Okay. So tell us where else we can find you online and on book tour, because we know everyone's going to want to come out and support you.
So it's at Emily Giffin Author on Instagram. And I'm also, I think it's Emily Giffin Fans on Facebook, if you prefer Facebook. But Emily Giffin Author. And the important thing is, and everyone does it, and I don't get upset at this point, but there's no R in Giffin. So if you go to Emily Griffin Fans or Emily Griffin Author, you're not going to find me. So Giffin. And I'm just starting TikTok too. Are you girls on TikTok?
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. It's like, but it's mostly just videos of my kids and they're running. But yeah, so you can, I think it's Emily Giffin Author on there too. But thank you so much for all you do for writers and books and reading. And you girls are amazing. You really are. So thank you. And thank you for having me and being a friend to me and to my books. It means a lot.
Emily, thank you so much for being with us and talking about what it takes to write these kind of characters, about true friendships, about your writing process, about your characters. It is such a pleasure having you on today. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Patti. Thanks, Kristy.
And everybody, be sure to tune in next week for when Kristin and Patti will welcome Marjan Kamali, author of The Lion Women of Tehran. That show will air live on the Friends and Fiction Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, July 31st at 7 p.m. Eastern, and it will be posted to our podcast for your listening pleasure on Friday, August 2nd.
And thanks to all of you for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.